takes a stroll down the carpet, steps up on the big stage.
Corner and make this silly, but he drives in. Inside trip by Lee, he gets it. Just the thought process, the strategy, throwing hard late in that match.
Welcome back to the Michael Maher Show. Today is Wednesday, June 8th, 2022. This is episode 80. I'm joined by Nick Lee, five-time All-American and back-to-back national champion at Penn State University. You went undefeated this past season, won the Big Ten title and national championship in the 141-pound division, and Penn State's first five-time All-American. Tell us a little bit about, what was your mindset heading into this season?
Yeah, wrestling is kind of an interesting sport. I think you train your mindset in college, as you train your body and stuff. And I think that's probably the same for a lot of sports. But for this past season, it was my fifth season going in for Penn State. And that's because of COVID year that all the college athletes got. So generally you get 4 years of eligibility. If you were not a senior, in 2020, then you received an extra year of eligibility. So going on my fifth season, I think the mindset was really just to have fun with it, enjoy an extra year that, most people don't get. And that's what we did. So
nice. Was there any hurdles or challenges that kind of came out of nowhere during the season that you had to overcome?
Yeah, I think, there's always something unexpected. I had a little bit of an injury in I think it was our first match of the year. And so, that kind of kicked my butt a little bit at the beginning of the year. And then, we had, towards the end of the season, we had, some COVID cases came up. Also we had a young team. So guys were learning to get to know each other, to work with each other. And that was interesting. Being one of the only seniors on the team, it was kind of on me to tackle all those challenges and see how we can get our team working together. So there's always, little things that you just don't expect, and you just work through them, and that's part of the process.
Mm-hmm. So you went undefeated. Was that always a goal of yours to go undefeated for one season at Penn State, or was that something that kind of just happened this year?
I think everyone wants to go undefeated, right? And I think last year was another year that I could have went undefeated. I lost in the Big Ten finals the year before. And then, so this year, just going in as my fifth season, I hadn't had an undefeated season yet. So it's not really something on my mind. That's always nice to do. But I think guys who think about that too much, maybe it gets in their way. So I've never really thought, I want to have an undefeated season. I just kind of, take one match at a time. And at the end of the year, I was thinking about it and I was like, all right, undefeated season, that's pretty cool. And then I did my own calculation in my head, and I think I was undefeated on the road my whole career. And so that's something that I didn't even think about until after the season. So I think just taking it one match at a time is important. One competition at a time. And then those stats kind of come with it.
Yeah. So for people that might not know, what is a typical season like for wrestling? You have tournaments, you wrestle as a team, you travel and stuff like that. Can you just kind of give a breakdown for it?
Yeah. So wrestling's an interesting sport because it's individual and it's also team-based, right? So there's 10 weight classes, and the season's really long. Most people will start competitions in October, November, and then our last competition is the very end of March. So it is kind of a long season. And generally at the beginning of the season, you're entering in a lot of individual tournaments. So you're going to a tournament, you're getting in a bracket with your weight class, and you're wrestling, 5, 6, 7 matches, sometimes more, excuse me, at those tournaments. And then the conference seasons usually start around January, and that's where you have the duels between two teams. And then postseason starts in roughly March, and then you have your conference tournament, which is another individual tournament, and then you have the national tournament. So it's a long season. I would say, one of the biggest challenges for wrestling is whether or not you're healthy at the end of the year. So that's like one of the biggest factors that I think people forget about. But it's a long season. It's tough, but for the fans that stick with it, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So once you get to the national or the national tournament, how many days separate do you have like in between matches?
None. So that's another interesting part about wrestling is whenever you have a tournament going on, if it's multiple days, you're wrestling every single day. So for the national tournament, it's 3 days. And if you go undefeated at the national tournament or you get to the finals, that'll be 5 matches over 3 days. So you have 2 one day, 2 the next day, 1 the last day. And you're weighing in each of those days as well. So that's another factor for wrestling is you are managing your weight, which can be tough for some guys. We've been making a lot of progress in the sport, I think, with healthy weight management. But that is a factor. If you lose matches, you're going to wrestle a lot more than 5 times. I remember my freshman year at the national tournament, I ended up placing 5th. So I All-American, but I did lose my first match. And so I wrestled 8 matches over 3 days. And I think that's the sorest I've ever been in my entire life. Was after that. So it can be pretty grueling.
Yeah. Does the NCAA let you guys use IVs to rehydrate after weight cuts?
I'm actually not sure on that rule, if that's legal or not. I know that our team doesn't. I know that our trainer doesn't allow that. I think it might be legal, but I don't want to speak on that without clarification. Yeah. I know that for our team, we're not permitted to do that.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering just because I know MMA like a couple years ago outlawed, or banned IVs and stuff. But all right, moving on to the next topic. Now that you've closed the book on your career at Penn State, what would you like to accomplish in the next chapter of your wrestling career?
Yeah, so for wrestling, after college, you generally join a regional training center. At Penn State, we have the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club. So I've signed up with them. And the training with the regional training center, generally, you're trying to make world teams and Olympic teams and wrestle in, international tournaments. And you'll still wrestle domestically sometimes, but that's kind of my goals right now is to try to make those world and Olympic teams for as long as my body can stay in the sport. And then, outside of wrestling, I'm working on, the side hustles to try to make a little money here and there. But for my wrestling goals, those are them.
So you're going to stay connected with the Penn State wrestling community and, work at their centers and stuff. But what are some things that you'll maybe miss about, competing for Penn State as a collegiate athlete?
Yeah, Penn State is interesting in wrestling. It's a really storied program. Wrestling is really part of the culture in Pennsylvania, whether you're, a kid or in high school. And then especially once you get to college, we sell out every single one of our duels at the Bryce Jordan Center where they play basketball. Every time we wrestle in there, sold out, 16,000 people. So I'm definitely going to miss, the fans and the hype around it. The reality is that college wrestling is just so much more popular and so much more of a fanfare, I guess, than post-college wrestling. And that's fine. That's just kind of the way it is. But I will miss the crowds and the fans and the hype around everything, I think. And I'm gonna miss it. I'm gonna miss the Penn State community as well. It's an incredible community.
Yeah, I mean, one of the best wrestling program in the nation. And so when you compete internationally, are the crowds like a little bit smaller than what you're used to at Penn State, or do people usually show out?
For a lot of international tournaments, it depends on where it is. The 2 biggest wrestling countries in the world are Iran and Russia. And Iranians and Russians will show out for these international tournaments in huge numbers, and they'll be really, really loud. And I haven't wrestled in too many international tournaments yet, so I haven't got a great feel for what the crowd is, but I know they get into it. But I don't think they can be louder than like the Iowa Hawkeyes and their home arena. It'd be hard to imagine.
Yeah. And you won a state championship at Modern Day High School in Evansville, Indiana. When did wrestling become, it could have like been before high school or during high school. When did wrestling become like a big part of your life? And you're like, I really want to like make a career out of this.
Yeah. I think back when I was in middle school, I was still pretty bad at wrestling, but I enjoyed it a lot. It was part of my community. The modern day community has, wrestling is part of the culture there as well. They have kind of a storied program in my high school. So I really enjoyed it. It was serious for a lot of people there. And then it's just kind of a sport that I was good at. I tried to play basketball. I tried to play soccer. I wasn't very good or coordinated with those. So, I stuck with wrestling. That's, what all my friends were doing. So I think whenever you're younger, it's almost like a social thing. And then, as I got better, I just, I liked it and I stuck with it. And once again, my friends were still doing it. So I would say around high school, I started to get more serious about it as far as like, okay, I can, try to make a career out of this and do some things in college and stuff. But, your mindset changes so much through high school and through college. It's a pretty, amazing transformation for any athlete that's, played a sport for almost their whole life.
Mm-hmm. So I also read that you had some family that went to Penn State and competed for them. When they offered you, was that like a no-brainer to go there and, wrestle for them? Or were you kind of choosing between some schools?
No, so my family's grew up big IU fans, just being from Indiana. And so Penn State, I kind of, I knew they were the best program in the country and had been for a while. But I was kind of surprised whenever they reached out. I didn't have a grasp of like in high school, kind of the national setting for wrestling. I kind of knew about the state of Indiana where I grew up. I kind of knew, some people, some college wrestlers here and there, but I took an unofficial visit to Penn State and I fell in love with it on the first trip. The people were incredible. Happy Valley, where Penn State College is located, is beautiful. So I would say it took, one visit and I was hooked.
Mm-hmm. And at the time, Cale Sanderson was coaching there. He had been there for a couple of years. Can you tell us a little bit about like what he's like as a coach and how special he is, and just ultimately like the program he's built at Penn State in the last decade?
Yeah, so I'll brag on him a little bit to start. I mean, as far as athletic programs, the program that he's led at Penn State over the last little over a decade, it might be the most dominant sports program in the entire world, any sport, any division. We've won almost every national tournament, in that time span. And then as far as his leadership and his coaching, I think it's different than most people think. He's not necessarily hands off, but he's not a babysitter. Whenever you get into college, you're expected to, be an adult in a way and kind of take your career into your own hands. And I think that can backfire for people who aren't necessarily serious, but it also kind of forces you to take ownership in your own training, in your own goals. And so I think that's more successful in the long run. He's a very competitive guy, almost to a fault. But he also cares a lot. I think some people see college sports as, very business-like. I have to bring in this recruit over you. I'm sorry. It's kind of, it seems cutthroat to some people in ways, but one thing I've noticed about Cale and our whole coaching staff is that every athlete that we have come through, whether they will never see the starting spot or if they're, a 4-time national champion, is they really do care about, you on the mat and off the mat. So in the classroom, outside of the classroom, all that stuff, it's really important to them. And I think it serves our program in a bigger way, kind of into the future.
Do you guys watch a lot of film at Penn State for wrestling? Like whether it's, scouting an opponent or watching old film? Because I know, Cale Sanderson was undefeated throughout college. He won like 160-0, which is insane. I mean, best wrestling career in as a college athlete like ever. So do you guys ever go back and, watch some old stuff and old tapes to, pick up some techniques?
Yeah, I think guys generally, if you're watching old tapes and stuff, I think it's generally, with a coach or, they reach out to do that. We don't necessarily watch film as a team necessarily, but our coaches also have been around the sport for a really long time. So if there is film and stuff for us to watch, they're going to give that to us. And then I like to say, like, they've forgotten more about wrestling than I feel like I'll ever know in my career. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So they've been around the sport for a long, long time. So a lot of that, knowledge is up in their heads, thankfully. But with the age of the internet, it's changed a lot of sports. And so there is a lot of film around there we can find. And I think for wrestling specifically, one of the best ways you can study film is whenever you're, wrestling an opponent that you've wrestled multiple times. I've had opponents in college that I've probably wrestled 5 times in my whole career, maybe more. But going back and kind of watching your own film and seeing what you did wrong, and that can be a hard thing to do, but it's also one of the most beneficial, I think.
Mm-hmm. And you competed in some massive matches throughout your wrestling career.
Yeah.
I mean, 5-time All-American, back-to-back national champion, Big Ten champion. Are there any like routines or rituals that you have or that you do before a big match before you're about to compete on TV and stuff?
I think I try to stay away from ritual, but I know that one of the things that it was an attempt to stay out of doing like ritual stuff, but it became kind of a ritual, is I do not listen to like any music. I always like stay off the music. I don't want to be like stimulated at all. Like I want to be like in my natural element, relaxed. I always say, kind of a little prayer before all my matches, but, other than that, I don't like ritual because, if I am ever in a situation where I don't have time or I don't have what I need for that, then that gets in my head. And then I'm like, oh shoot, I didn't do this thing, or I couldn't do this thing. What's that going to mean for my match? So I try to stay away from ritual as much as possible, but you can't avoid it here and there.
Yeah. So if you're comfortable sharing, like, this past season, right before you competed for the title, like what's going through your head? Like you're sitting in the back, you're watching these other people wrestling in front of you, and then you're getting ready to go out there and compete in front of 16,000 people. Yeah. Like what's going through your head? Like take us through that.
It's interesting because you would think that you would be, really nervous and anxious. And I've gotten that way before, but I don't really get that way anymore. I just there was a time in my career where I would go out in front of a gigantic crowd and I would like kind of try to block it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that made me more anxious. And so I just kind of get excited. And whenever I, see the crowd and, all the people watching, I really try to like, take it in. And I think, the thoughts going through my head before these gigantic matches is, wow, like not a lot of people get to do this. This is really cool. And so I'm really grateful for those opportunities, because not a lot of people will get to do it. And so it's just super unique. It's something that, I'm not going to be able to, accurately share with everybody. And so I just try to experience it, and take it in and live in the moment. So I wish I could say that I was really nervous or anything, but more just excited and grateful.
That's awesome, man. And like best part was that you ended up winning. So what's the celebration like afterwards? I mean, you win the title, you celebrate with the teams in the locker room, you get changed, and you head out the arena. What was the celebration like? You got to tell us. Yeah.
So so for my first national championship, we were in St. Louis, and, that was pretty fun. I actually went straight to sleep after that, because I was really, really tired, and you don't get out of there till later. And then, Detroit, we kind of hung out together, and we had the same guys on our team win national championships as the year before. And it's interesting because if you look at the first year I won a national championship, we had 4 guys in the finals and all 4 of us won. And then this past year, we had 5 guys in the finals, all 5 of us won. And 4 of those guys, including me, were the same guys. And so we just kind of sat around together and kind of like, reflected on, how special of a moment that is, and, being grateful for each other. And then, we hang out together a little bit, go to sleep, and then come back to State College. And then, you get to see your friends and stuff. And it's pretty exciting. State College is a fun town for, people who haven't been here, but it gets pretty fun.
What's that one bar? It's like the most popular bar in Happy Valley.
Oh, I think it's Champs.
Okay. Isn't there one that's also starts with a P? It's like
Permani Brothers.
Yeah.
P-Mans. Yeah, that's the one. There's a bunch of bars here that are a lot of fun. I went to P-Mans and Champs. Those are kind of the places that I frequented, not too much, but it's, where my friends went. And then it was pretty fun. There's a lot of like, athletes and even fans that will, come by. So it's State College is, like I said, it's a fun town. I feel bad limiting it to 2 of the establishments because there's a bunch that are a lot of fun.
No, I see it all the time on Snapchat because I'm only like 4 hours from Penn State. So a bunch of my friends go up there or like, actually go there for school and we visit and stuff like that. And it's just, it's a great college town.
Yeah. Actually to celebrate the 5-for-5 national champions, Champs actually brought in DJ Pauly D and did something. And then we had, the wrestlers come in, they called it National Champ Night and stuff. And they brought us on the stage. So that was really cool. And it's kind of cool just to see the community, getting excited about your sport and stuff, which is awesome. And DJ Pauly D was there, which is really cool as well. So.
Yeah. So for the 4 or 5 of you that went back to back, have all you guys graduated, or are there any people, going for the 3-peat?
Oh, I'm the only one that graduated, actually. We have the weight below me, Roman Bravo Young. He's going for his he said he's coming back, but he may or may not come back, but he has opportunity to win a 3rd national title. We have Aaron Brooks. He might have 2. I think he has 2 more years of eligibility, so he could possibly be a 4-time national champion. Max Dean, I think, has 2 more years of eligibility, so he could possibly be a 3-time national champion. And then Carter Starachi, has full 5 years of eligibility with COVID and everything, so he has the opportunity to be a 5-time national champion, which would be the most anyone's ever won. So that would be really cool. And I'll be sticking around with the program and helping those guys where I can.
Yeah, dude, it's just wild to like, because some of the research I was doing, like, since Cael Sanderson joined, it's like 30 national champions or something, like 30 national titles. It's wild.
We have a kind of a history on our wall in our wrestling facility, and if you kind of look at, these are the successful names, national champions for the history of Penn State, and half of them are just in Cael Sanderson's time here. So it'd be more than half now. So it speaks to his coaching, and just not to limit it to him. We have 3 other coaches. Cody Sanderson, his brother, helps out a lot. Specifically with lightweights like me and Roman Bravo Young. Jake Varner, he's the head coach of the Knit Line Wrestling Club. Casey Cunningham, heavyweight coach. Just incredible. And then this past year, Jimmy Kennedy joined the coaching staff as well. And so, people can go and look up those names, but the coaching staff as a whole is, in my opinion, the best coaching staff in the whole world. And I think their results really prove it. And, just to continue to brag, we had the Olympics, it's been a year and a half now. Half of the Olympic men's freestyle Olympic team was all NLWC, Nittany Lion Wrestling Club guys. So, we're really showing incredible results at the college level and at the international level. Just, for recruits or, anyone interested in, successful programs out there, Penn State Wrestling is the program to watch.
Obviously, you want to compete internationally and stuff now that you've graduated from Penn State, but would you ever like to transition and try out MMA?
I've thought a lot about it. It seems like that's really where the trend is right now. We have a 3-time national champion that I was on a team with for several years named Bo Nickel, who's doing MMA. Mm-hmm. He just knocked a dude out in his first professional fight. It was awesome. It's not something that I know a lot about. I've been paying more attention to it. I know a lot of our guys have MMA aspirations. It's something that I've looked at. I've never considered it seriously. I would want to go and experience it a little bit. We have an American Top Team gym in State College where a bunch of guys train. So I think it's something that I would consider. I'm not sold on it yet, but I've been told that I would be good at it by a lot of people. So I might have to think more seriously about it.
Yeah. Is Bo Nickel, is he training at ATT in Florida or is he up in Penn State?
He's been down to Florida a few times, I think, but he spends most of his time training in the gym in Happy Valley.
Okay. Yeah. Cause I mean, ACT is like, one of the best gyms in the nation, but yeah, that's just, do you watch MMA at all?
I watch it from time to time, especially when it's guys that I know. I'm interested whenever guys work wrestling into their MMA, obviously, since I'm a wrestler. So I was a big I like to watch Khabib and those guys. I thought it was really interesting. And it seems like to me, this is my biased opinion, that wrestlers, really are kind of getting the better of MMA right now. And there's a few exceptions there, but it'll be interesting to see kind of how the sport evolves over the next decade or so, because it really seems like a lot more wrestlers are getting into that space.
Yeah, no, I would definitely say wrestling is like the most important aspect to have as an MMA fighter, just because like you control where the fight goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you take someone to the ground and don't let them up, that's a big advantage if that's where you want to be. And I think, that's something wrestlers are really good at, just body control and being able to control the body of your opponent. So.
So you said Khabib. Are there any other fighters that you really like to watch when you get a chance to check out the sport?
Well, the first MMA fight I ever watched was McGregor and the Brazilian guy.
Jose Aldo?
Yes, Aldo. And it lasted like a few seconds. And so that turned me off to MMA a little bit because I paid a bunch of money for that fight. But I like to watch Ben Askren out now, a wrestler that I was a fan of. I watched McGregor a little bit more because he always flapped his mouth and than anything else.
Yeah.
And then, I try to watch, our guys that I know. There's a guy named Ed Ruth. He's coaching at Illinois now, but he fought for a little bit. I like to watch Tony Ferguson a little bit. So, there's a few that I keep an eye on. I'm not married to, anybody as far as like, I'm a diehard fan, but whenever it's on and I have the opportunity, I kind of watch, and I like to, study, and I like to see who has good wrestling skills. So,
yeah. So being at Penn State for as long as you were, and like how accomplished and great the program is, were there any MMA fighters or UFC fighters, Bellator fighters that went up and trained with you guys to get some reps?
Yeah, Cruz came up a couple times with Roman Bravo Young. They're good buddies, and if you kind of watch their footwork, it's the same footwork. And then we've had a couple more guys come up, and I don't know if that's private info or not, so I don't want to give too many names, but we have had a bunch of MMA fighters come in and try to learn some wrestling and stuff, and it's kind of cool to, see those big faces in here. But wrestling is definitely, I would say it's probably, other than maybe boxing, the most important, skill you can have in that space. So we have had a couple, to answer your question.
Yeah, I agree. And we talked about how great the coaching staff is at Penn State and how much better it's gotten in the last decade or two.
Yeah.
Is that something you'd ever like to get into when your career is completely wrapped up, is coaching?
I have a good relationship with my coaches. I think they're really good coaches, and I've been told that I would be decent at coaching, so maybe I might want to get into that. I will say I noticed that whenever you're a coach, especially at the college level, you spend like a quarter of your time coaching, and the rest of the time is like all the other bull crap. So I don't know if I want to do that or not. I'll make that decision when the time comes, but I think it's definitely something I'm open to. I love the sport, and I love to be successful in the sport. And so whenever I can't do that for myself anymore, maybe coaching is the way to do it.
And majored in political science at Penn State, 3-time national all academic team. Was it kind of hard for you to balance school and athletics, considering like how deep you went into the tournaments and stuff?
Yeah. So so this past year I majored in political science, but I actually graduated the year before with an undergraduate degree in health policy and administration. So this year, my major was, pretty much to stay eligible. I'm not going to finish my political science major, my undergraduate political science major, but I think school and collegiate sports is what makes your sport difficult, in my opinion. It's obviously there are physical challenges to playing a sport in college, whether it's wrestling, football, anything, right? But just kind of being athletic, taking care of your body, diet, exercise, that, in my opinion, is a really luxurious lifestyle that a lot of people don't get to live. And so I don't see that, while it is physical and mentally challenging, I don't see that as the hard part. I see the hard part of college sports is doing that all while also, maintaining a GPA with, a full course load. So it was difficult. I think time management is really important. You really have to prioritize your time and what you want to do. And people who don't suffer for it, and it makes everything else harder. So it's difficult, but I think that in college, generally, if you do your homework and you go to class, it's, you can pass your classes. I get really impressed with the people who are, getting, straight A's in, something like engineering while also, starting in a sport. That's what really impresses me. But I worked hard. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It was tough in some areas, but I just think, persistence, time management is important stuff, and it's skills you develop over the course of your career.
Yeah. And like you said, I think one of the biggest things about like doing well in college is just showing up, like you said, like just attending classes and stuff. That's definitely one of the biggest things that advice I'd give to people. But if you can pinpoint, what is one career path or a couple career paths that you would kind of also like to get down if you weren't involved with wrestling?
I'm kind of I like to be in charge of myself. So, I want to start my own business, and, I'm kind of brewing up a couple ideas right now, and those are in the works, so we won't talk about them too much. That's something I've always wanted to do. And then my dad is an attorney. And so just in today's day and age, I've always considered getting my law degree as well. And so, that's something that I know we've talked about so many things that I could do, but that's also something, I'm thinking about doing. But for now, I'm just kind of, focusing on my journey in wrestling and, being done with school a little bit, being able to put some more focus on that. And then, you have different personal goals and stuff. So, there's a lot I want to do. I won't be able to get through all of it, but hopefully I can get through some of it.
Mm-hmm. And wrestling is such a, it takes a lot of discipline and commitment and everything like that. And it can be taxing on your body and on your mind.
Yeah.
This is the final question I got for you, and thank you for your time.
Sure.
What are some lessons that you've learned through wrestling that you are able to apply in your everyday life?
I think, the main thing you have to be concerned about is like your mental health, right? And I don't, it might be mental health. It was like month or mental health day or something recently.
Yeah.
I feel bad that I don't know exactly, but I think mental health is really important. And I think that, keeping things in perspective is really important, right? While I put a lot of time and effort into, wrestling, at the end of the day, it is a sport. And so you have to kind of, keep perspective on that and make sure that you're not, tying your own self-value to anything that you're doing. And then as far as your body, just being disciplined with your diet, with your rest is really important. And that's not for athletes. That's for, just human beings in general, I think, is taking care of your physical body. That's going to help you whether you're, working, an office job or, a high level athlete. Rest, diet, very, very important. And those are big things that I think a lot of people miss. I wish it was more complicated than that, but it's not. Keeping perspective and, taking care of your body. That's getting enough sunlight, oddly enough. That's something that I've really had to focus on because, I spend a lot of time inside on school. So just making sure that you're taking care of yourself is very important. And it sounds simple, but a lot of people miss it.
Yeah, man. Hey, it was a pleasure talking to you and having you on the show. Everyone scroll down below, follow Nick on Instagram at NickLee_PSU, and on Twitter at NickLee141. And dude, like I said, it was an honor getting to chat with you, and 5-time All-American, back-to-back national champion. And, I can't wait to keep up and see what else you can accomplish going forward.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
Today was Wednesday, June 8th, 2022, episode 80 of the Michael Maher Show. I was joined by Nick Lee, 5-time All-American and back-to-back national champion wrestler for Penn State University. I'm your host of the show, Michael Maher, and I'll see you guys next week.